What used to be safety in our world, whether personal safety, social safety, tribal safety, is changing, just as it may not be it may be recognized now to not be safe to put vinyl floors down for the rest of the world for the future. And 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 it, it might it might not be safe to allow your identity information to be made available to others on the internet. The definitions of safety are changing, and the associated strategies of remaining safe within our very complexified and challenging and competitive global environment are changing. So prior tribal and social definitions no longer apply. And that said, even if someone becomes very streetwise in regard to their utilization of the internet and their social media process and presence, that doesn't mean that they're not operating in some dimension of their system from fear. It doesn't mean that they're not trying to attain or retain or maintain control over some dimension of life or themselves or their relationship processes or information distribution, etc. We're not suggesting going out into the wild west of the internet all willy-nilly or with a Pollyanna perspective. We're also not suggesting ever operating from fear. We're suggesting always operating from conscious discernment without fear and with wisdom in a grounded, practical, sovereign way. The prior definitions of organizational safety as only being attainable if you've got a requisite projected market share or enough profit or enough people or a specific growth rate, or nations only feeling safe if they have a military industrial complex that they pour trillions of dollars into in order to make ever more bombs or weapons or intelligence technologies. Those are prior safety and control strategies that are growing out of proportion to their functional true safety applicability. They're not making us safer. Creating more cyber weapons is not making the world safer from other nations that might be simultaneously developing cyber weapons. Creating more nuclear weapons is not making us safer from people who have nuclear weapons or are creating them. The prior definitions and dynamics of safety and control in the world are primal, tribal, fear-based, unconscious, projective, imagination-based, taproot-based, destruction as equaling safety definitions of meaning we're only safe if we can destroy, we're only safe if we can fight, we're only safe if we can compete, we're only safe if we can eliminate the competition or those who might try to hurt us. Those definitions of safety don't work anymore in our world, and they need to be updated, refined, and evolved. We very much need to create new definitions of growth, not 2% or 10% profit or increased numbers of customers or membership or whatever as definitions of growth. If we say evolution of consciousness and understanding and attainment of wisdom and discernment, those are, and in a grounded, practical, and multidimensional way, those are a lot closer to anything that's ever going to be safe for humanity. And of course, in harmony with the ecosystem. So letting go of what in the past might have been imagined endings of old ways, seeing the end of prior modes of social or personal process as either lack, loss, death, pain, or potential harm, and instead focusing on transformation as opportunity and possibility and potential, and optimistically and positively and constructively, seeing it as a path forward for humanity that can regenerate our natural world and create a world for our children in which they can live and thrive and find joy and happiness. Redefining all of these prior simulacra or definitions or terms that we've operated from so subconsciously, tribally, and in such resonance with the unconscious consensus consciousness. The redefinition and the proliferation of these new definitions into the world and helping people practice operating from these new definitions is foundational to global transformation. It's necessary. It's not pie in the sky. It's not fluff. It's not ungrounded. This is where the rubber meets the road. This is survival for our species and for other species. This is survival for our children's futures. To be willing to boldly take the necessary requisite steps of redefining these terms for ourselves and walking that talk in every dimension of our lives, modeling that for humanity, serving patiently, kindly, and supportively as they catch on, and recognizing that we can be the butterfly that flaps its wings in one hemisphere of the world and creates massive shifts in another part of the world as a domino effect. We don't always need to see that effect in order to recognize we are flapping our wings. It will have that effect. The world will be transformed, and people will learn. They will evolve. They will transform. And we must have faith in that process, because without faith, how can the butterfly recognize and understand its power in the world to change the course of history in the other hemisphere of the world? How many human beings within themselves, locally within themselves as an individual, or locally within their family, or locally within their company, or locally within their friends, how much are they in transformational gridlock of judgment, punishment, blame, fear, misinformation, misunderstanding, confusion, stress, lack of a path and process forward for themselves as individuals and for humanity as a global collective? So this transformational gridlock is operating within individuals. COVID is an expression of it. The breaking down of supply chains as a domino effect of COVID in the world is an expression of it. And it's being misinterpreted. And the misinterpretation of the process of the internal or the global gridlock is creating more transformational resistance. We are certainly learning from this process, and we're not learning nearly as fast or as well or intelligently or as constructively as we could be. A metaphor for this process is what might be termed false recycling of resources in our world. The plastic bottle. We say, oh, we recycle plastics. No, we don't. We're not recycling our waste. We say we're recycling our waste. We try to recycle our waste. Then we fail, and then we create more waste. And then we congratulate ourselves for recycling our waste, and we ignore the waste we're producing while we're polluting the world and creating ever more global warming. This process of false recycling is a metaphor. You're quite welcome. This process of false recycling is a metaphor for the false transformations that are being and transformational options that are being presented to us of short-term fixes where we're dragging our feet in terms of ceasing to utilize fossil fuels. We're dragging our feet in terms of overfishing, when we're dragging our feet in terms of developing new ways to grow food that don't damage the earth and poison the food and poison the insects and animals and ourselves as a result. That's false recycling. That's a false economy. It's not a truly economically sustainable economy, and there are many people, groups, and organizations and nations that are trying to dress it up as if it is healthy, as if it is sustainable, as if it is good. And they're trying to motivate people to operate within that paradigm while the Titanic sails onto the iceberg or while the raft goes over the waterfall. The WSS organizational culture, we see this process of defining conscious collaborative culture, we see as key to global success. That is a big statement. It's not an arrogant statement. It's not a non-humble statement. It's not a statement that's not grounded. It's not fanciful. It's not wishful thinking. We're saying that if we can see through these illusions, through conscious sovereign discernment, then we can communicate fact, truth, functional, practical, sustainable options and methods and solutions generation techniques and technologies to the world. If we can't see through these false representations, these ignorant misrepresentations of what doesn't work, if we can't tell the truth, cut to the chase, get to where the rubber meets the road, talk truth to power immediately and directly, then the inertia of these prior dysfunctional gridlock producing dynamics will simply get worse. And people will remain like operating unconsciously and reactively and dysfunctionally rather than consciously, proactively, and functionally and transformatively.